Study Bassers! In our last video, we talked all about what it means to be in tune. And we talked about what you're supposed to listen for and why it's so critical for your bass to be in tune all of the time. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about how to tune your bass using your ears. First, the standard tuning notes of the 4-string bass, going from the low fat string to the high skinny string, go E, A, D, G. You can find tuning reference notes in the Tools section of StudyBass, but you can also tune to the notes of a piano or a guitar that's in tune. They make little pitch pipes that you can blow into to give you the right note, or there are tuning forks. There's a number of ways to get a reference note to tune to. Now, generally what you'll do is you'll tune one string to the reference note, and then you'll tune the other strings in relationship to your one string that's in tune. If you have access to a keyboard or a piano, you should learn to find the right notes on the piano that match your bass. So at least learn to find the note E. The note E on the piano is the white key above the pair of black keys. So the only tuning mishap would be to tune a string too high and break it. So if you've never tuned before, I suggest that you loosen the string quite a bit so that you're sure that you're well below the target pitch. Now, as you tune your string up, the right note should be the first matching note. Let's tune the E string to an E reference note. Here's an E on the piano. Now, pluck your E string and slowly turn the E string tuning key. Make sure that you're turning the right one until the two notes match. So listen closely, and as you get closer to the correct note, you'll hear the beating sound get slower and slower. When the two notes are in tune, you'll hear almost no beating whatsoever. When tuning to a guitar player's E, remember that their E is an octave higher than yours. So you have to make sure that you don't tune to the wrong octave, because that's how you will break your string. If you're worried that you passed up the note, just loosen the string and start over. It takes a little practice to master tuning, but once you have it, it'll just take you a few seconds to tune up a string. Now that you have one string in tune, we need to tune the other strings to it. Since the E string is in tune, that means all of the other notes along that string are also in tune. So all we need to do now is find a matching note for the next open string. So we need the note A for our next open string. So on the E string that's in tune, we start here, we have E, and then F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and then A. So on our 5th fret, we have the matching note for the next open string. But you can hear they don't match. You can hear that pulsating sound, that beating sound that we talked about. So what I do is play those together and then reach over with my other hand and tune the string until those two match. So you can still hear it's pulsating a bit. So now that your A string is in tune, we do the same thing. On the A string, we need to find the note D. So again, we go here A, and then we have A sharp, B, C, C sharp, and then D. So our 5th fret D should match the open string D. Now here's the good news, it's always on the 5th fret. So on our D string we have the same thing, where we'll find on the 5th fret a G, and that G should match the next open string G. So if you can get one string in tune, you can tune all of the other strings in relationship to it. So you might have thought that holding the 5th fret of this string and then reaching over to tune is a little bit awkward. There's an easier way using harmonics. So what are harmonics? Well, harmonics are little bell-like tones that ring out at certain points of the string. Now, how do I get those? Well, what I'm doing is I'm lightly touching the string without pressing it down, and then I pluck with my other hand. Now, if I didn't touch the string, I would just get the open note. But then if I press the string down, I'll get a different note. But if I lightly touch, I get one of the harmonics. So the two harmonics that we need for tuning will fall on the 5th fret and on the 7th fret. To make harmonics ring out well, there are a few things that you should remember. First, you have to touch very, very lightly. So I'm just barely touching the string. And the next thing is that you have to play in a very specific spot on the string. So if you're just a little bit off, you lose the sound of the harmonic. So it has to be very exact. And then the last thing is, as soon as your harmonic is ringing out, you can release your finger and it'll continue to ring. And that's what makes it really convenient for tuning, because then your hand is free to reach over to the tuning keys. So how do we use harmonics to tune the bass? Well, when your strings are in tune, the harmonic on the 5th fret of the E string should match the 7th fret harmonic on the A string. So now if they didn't match, it might sound like this. And what's nice about the harmonics is you can clearly hear the beating sound that we talked about in the last video. So it's that pulsating sound of the two out of tune notes. Now as I tune closer to the correct pitch, you'll hear that that beating slows down. And what you'll find is that every pair of strings has the same relationship. So the 5th fret of this A string will match the 7th fret of the D string. And the 5th fret of the D string will match the 7th fret of the G. In our next video, we're going to talk about tuning with an electronic tuner. And that's probably what you'll do most of the time. But it's very important that you develop the skill of tuning by ear. So think of it a lot like a calculator, that you still need to know how to do math, right? So what you should do is practice tuning by ear and then check your work with the tuner.